An excited high school girl, eager to play her new video game, is suddenly taken out by the legendary Truck-kun. To her horror, she's reborn as Pride, the game's final boss, an evil and powerful queen who dies in the end. Armed with her past memories and knowledge of the game's story, Pride uses her cheat powers to save herself, change the world, and steal the game's heroine's lovers. While a red-haired princess overlooks her balcony, a young Japanese high schooler is excited to play her favorite girls' game, Our Ray of Light. Unfortunately for her, a high-speed truck gives her a new life within the game's world. As this happens, Pride suddenly collapses in her room. When she wakes up, the girl is shocked that she's now in the body of 8-year-old Pride Royal Ivy, the game's final boss, with all the memories of her previous life. From the game, Pride remembers that she is a cruel queen who terrorizes her country, remembering how she'll torture the heroine of the game, her little sister, Tiara, her love interests, and eventually die in the end. Pride is horrified. While she is thinking about this on her bed, Pride's worried father, Albert, rushes in the room. Remembering that she hasn't met Tiara yet, Pride then asks her father about Tiara, who is shocked that she can see the future. This news delights him, as the ability to foresee the future is the mark of their Kingdom of Frisia's queen. It should be noted that in this world, everyone has special powers. Seeing his happy expression, Pride gets confused, since the event seems different than in the game. After her father leaves, Pride thinks about her foresight ability, remembering that this ability is what will make her the queen. Thinking about her terrible actions afterward and how she kills Tiara and her lovers in the game's bad ending, Pride shakes her head, not wanting to kill good people. Then, she suddenly remembers an important future event and rushes to her room's window. Despite her maid screaming at her to get back, Pride stands at the edge of the window and calls to her father, who is preparing to leave in a carriage. Albert is shocked by this, but Pride warns him that his carriage has a broken wheel that will cause him to meet his end. Suddenly, a strong wind blows and knocks Pride off balance, much to everyone's horror. Luckily, a servant catches her just in time, saving the situation. Pride remembers that the game's Pride couldn't foresee the event in time, but she used her past knowledge to save her father in this world. As the girl relaxes, her servants look terrified as they beg for mercy for letting her enter danger. Pride notices the fear in their voices, as they know her to be a cold, heartless villainess. She starts crying out of guilt. After crying her heart out, Pride goes to sleep while her father mentions getting an adoptive sibling for her. And in her dreams, she experiences the evil Pride's memory of torturing an innocent boy. After waking up, Pride walks towards a room. She remembers the story being different since her father would have died in the carriage accident, and her mother afterward from a broken heart. This would have made Pride the queen, leading her to a tyrannical path. But now, things were different. Soon Pride meets 7-year-old Stale, a commoner child and her future husband. Her father mentions that Stale has been handcuffed to prevent him from using his teleportation abilities. Pride feels awful that a young child would be taken away from his mother and chained up, and shakes the boy's hand. Her father then tells her that Stale will sign a servant contract with her, which triggers a memory in Pride. She knows that the illiterate Stale will get tricked into signing a predatory fealty contract, which would make him a servant unable to resist any commands she gives. So, she decides to change this event. Thus, she visits Stale at night, giving him the key to his handcuffs. Surprisingly, Stale refuses, saying his mother will get hurt if he escapes again, or that the castle might kidnap another one of his friends if he does escape, and he doesn't want that. Seeing that Stale said his proper goodbyes and came prepared with his resolve steeled, Pride leaves after he thanks her for her concern. The next day, Stale signs the contract with Pride and becomes her younger brother and future husband. Watching the two kids, a blue-haired man named Gilbert congratulates the princess mockingly. Her father, Albert, scolds Gilbert for teasing his daughter and drags him away. Later, Pride takes Stale to a library, happy to have found a new playmate. She keeps trying to make Stale call her by her first name, which the shy boy finds hard to do. However, while they're running around, Stale suddenly collapses out of exhaustion. Pride later watches him rest in his room, realizing Stale must have been working hard to study and become someone worthy of the royal family. She remembers something the evil Pride did. She had made Stale take his own mother's life for mere amusement, and she begins feeling sick from guilt. Soon, Stale begins waking up, and Pride hugs him. The blushing boy hears her apologize for separating him from his mother, and Pride promises to try her best for him and the people of her country. However, Stale also receives an ominous warning from the sweet Pride, a request to kill her if she ever becomes evil. After Stale goes back to sleep, he envisions a nightmare where sadistic Pride forces him to murder his own mother. The maniacal woman leaves him trembling in despair after forbidding him to even end his own life after committing such an atrocity. All the shattered boy can do is curse Pride and desire revenge. This horrible nightmare wakes up Stale, confusing him. While walking in the house's corridors, he remembers he has Pride's handkerchief in his pocket. He recalls how he was taken away from his crying mother and was planning to get close to Pride, only to reunite with his mother in the future. However, Pride turned out to be a kind, gentle girl instead of the selfish princess he had imagined, leaving him confused. Stale's thoughts are interrupted by Pride herself, who hugs and calls him to a room. Inside, he is given a letter from his mother containing all her well wishes. Stale begins tearing up from homesickness as Albert tells him that his mother is being provided regular financial aid and he will be allowed to exchange letters with her once a year at Pride's request. Knowing Pride is breaking palace rules for him, Stale wonders why the kind girl hugging him thinks she could one day turn evil. He swears to protect Pride forever and make her happy, while Gilbert watches the kids with a displeased face. Later, when he remembers Gilbert's expression, Stale wonders what to write to his mother. He teleports to Gilbert's location and overhears him making terrible rumors about Pride. Stale gets mad as Gilbert smears Pride's name and calls her a selfish, arrogant brat. He then returns home, wondering what to do about the situation. To win people's trust and clear any doubts about Pride's personality, he gets well dressed, thinking he must earn more trust than Prime Minister Gilbert. Somewhere else, we see a mature blonde woman, Rosa, the current queen and Pride's mother. She asks her daughter Tiara if she is excited to meet her elder sister and brother soon. A few days later, Pride attends an elegant ball with Stale. A blushing Stale praises Pride's cute looks, while her response leaves him more embarrassed. After they head out to the main hall, they meet Queen Rosa, who announces the appearance of her first daughter, Pride, to the public. Pride and Stale greet Rosa and soon meet a nervous Tiara. The crowd adores the cute girl, and Pride feels a little jealous that her little sister is getting more attention. However, she greets her happily and falls in love with her cutesy sister. Stale also greets Tiara, declaring they're one big family and will work together to support Pride, the future queen. This action wins over the people, who learn that Pride has support from the entire royal family. Promptly, Rosa also approaches Pride and announces to the people that she is chosen as the new successor. Pride is surprised as her mother tells her to remember this moment forever. Later, as the crowd enjoys a feast, Gilbert greets Tiara and Pride. He mocks Pride for succeeding instead of her little sister, but Stale loyally defends her. Pride and Tiara watch a heated argument, scared by Stale's venomous words. Meanwhile, Rosa is relieved, thinking that the dark future she had seen for her daughter Pride has been erased. Back to Pride, she is greeted by Roderick, the captain of the Imperial Knights. Roderick seems impressed by Pride's elegant behavior, while her parents smile joyfully at the sight. Just like I'd be joyful if you liked this video and subscribed to my channel. I've got plenty of villainous anime in my Shoujo Weekly. You can watch them all here in my playlist, and get a great sense of pride that by subscribing, you're helping me make more to share with you. I'd appreciate it. 3 peaceful years after that event, Pride watches Stale practice swordplay against a knight. Her sister Tiara asks her about her relationship with Stale, and Pride responds that they will probably get married. Stale hears this and is caught off guard as he stumbles and gets knocked down. As Tiara cleans his face, Pride smiles at Stale, thinking that just like in the game, perhaps Stale has already fallen for the protagonist Tiara. As the blushing Stale avoids Pride's misunderstanding gaze, she asks the knight for a favor. Soon, Pride begins practicing with the knight, surprising everyone with her sword skills. Apparently, her cheat ability allows her to learn any techniques after only watching them once. Seeing Pride fight so gracefully, Stale feels disheartened, wondering if she even needs him to protect her. Pride reassures Stale that she will need his help if she lacks strength, which motivates him to keep practicing. Pride smiles as she watches the peaceful scene, wondering when her end as the villainess will come. Later, the Imperial Knights greet Pride for an observation. Pride asks Vice Captain Clark where Roderick is, and he reveals that the captain is with some new recruits, practicing joint drills with an ally kingdom. As Pride observes the knights practice, she suddenly receives terrible news. Roderick and the new recruits have gotten attacked by enemies. As Clark prepares to assist Roderick, Pride requests to follow him. They enter a room with a screen for communication. Roderick is outraged that the princess is helping with such a low-level task, but Pride insists that she'll try to save as many lives as possible. She learns that the closest reinforcement team will reach the battlefield in 30 minutes. So, she gets Stale to teleport supplies to the field. This helps restock the soldiers' gear and lifts their spirits as they fight back with courage. Roderick is surprised by Stale's powerful ability, and Pride requests Clark to keep it a secret. As the troops regroup and strategize, Pride hears that the battlefield's ground is unstable, reminding her that it is a hidden cliff that will collapse and kill everyone on it. Pride alerts Roderick, saying her foresight detected that, and Roderick sends all his recruits to escape. However, he stays in one place, and Pride learns that his leg got trapped under a boulder. Unfortunately, because Roderick has an ability that makes him immune to all sword attacks, he cannot even cut off his own leg to escape. The situation seems hopeless, and everyone prepares themselves for a sacrifice. However, a silver-haired young man, Roderick's son, Arthur, cries for his father to fight back. As Roderick holds the enemy back for his recruits to escape, Clark cuts off communication from his end to keep the palace safe from the enemy. Arthur seems devastated, and Pride feels helpless as more and more wounds appear on Roderick's body. When all hope seems lost, Pride reassures Arthur that she will save her knight no matter what, and requests Stale to teleport her to the battlefield. Stale and the knights don't want their crown princess to risk her life, but she refuses to stay back while her men fight for the kingdom. After reassuring Stale that she will survive no matter what, Pride cuts open her skirt to increase mobility and is teleported to the battlefield. She announces her presence to the soldiers and immediately begins hacking and slashing. Everyone watches, shocked, as the weak-looking princess takes out the enemy forces solo. Then, she looks around and spots a man hiding behind a tree. Pride catches this man and takes him to Roderick, whom she tells to hold him tight. Pride whispers something into the mysterious man's ears as rocks fall from the collapsing cliff. Back in the kingdom, Arthur experiences a nightmare about his current situation. The heartless princess Pride had let his father and the recruits die, and her only comment about the matter was that Roderick was a useless captain who cost her some worthless men. Arthur would get enraged by this cold, ungrateful treatment, and later become a knight to avenge his father. However, now he stares as the rubble clears from the fallen cliff. A strange box of rocks near it opens up, containing Pride, Roderick, and the odd man, all safe and sound. After the battle, the mysterious man is captured and the soldiers begin reorganizing themselves. They wonder who the pretty young girl with the captain is, and are shocked to learn it's their future queen, Pride. Inside the palace, the knights and Arthur are relieved that the battle ended with 0 losses. Stale feels terrible that he let Pride fight and vows to get stronger to protect her. Back on the battlefield, Roderick offers to take Pride to safety, which she refuses, saying she must ensure everything goes well. However, this time, the obedient knight captain isn't taking any of her orders, since he angrily picks up the reckless, foolish princess in his arms. Pride realizes he is upset, but then remembers that she tore her skirt. All the knights watching laugh as their princess blushes furiously with embarrassment. Later, the knights are gathered up by Pride in a private room. There, they discuss everything that happened on the battlefield. Roderick questions how the young princess could use a sword and gun, and Pride replies that she saw some knights practice with them, shocking everyone with her cheat skill to learn things after only watching once. Roderick also questions why she personally visits him to help, saying that if she died from her own carelessness, the kingdom would have fallen into darkness. While Pride finds his words reasonable, she still feels that she would have acted to save her knight or any other common soldier if she had the power to do it. She also reminds Roderick that although he could have died an honorable death, his death would mean fewer people would be protected by him in the future. This shocks the knights, who agree with her logic. Thus, Pride firmly declares that she is a future queen who will always fight for her people, which silences everyone. Then slowly, the knights begin thanking their crown princess for saving their captain, Roderick. Arthur also kneels with gratitude before asking Pride if he can become a knight with his measly power for growing crops. Pride reassures him while holding his hand, saying she fully believes he will one day become a great knight. Nearby, Stale watches the scene with jealousy. While Arthur is relieved by her trust, Pride requests him to stop her if one day she turns evil, shocking Arthur. Finally, his father, Roderick, admits he is glad he can return home to his friends and family. As Arthur watches Pride hug Roderick, he wonders why the sweet princess thinks she could one day become a horrible person and vows to protect her with his life. Later, Arthur recalls that he had awakened the ability to grow crops in his childhood, making him think he was more suited to be a farmer than a knight. However, Pride's kind actions and personality have convinced him to become stronger to protect her. After getting ready, he heads outside his house to spar with his dad. While sparring, Roderick asks Arthur if he's thinking about Pride, which catches him off guard. He defeats Arthur, but is greatly surprised by his skill, considering Arthur hadn't trained with the sword in years. His wife comes out from the commotion and Roderick runs away to avoid her, leaving his sword behind. As all this happens, back at the castle, Pride recalls a memory of Arthur from her other life. The devastated boy had cried for his father, who had been tossed away by the evil Pride. Suddenly, Stale's voice breaks Pride out of her thoughts. Afterwards, they head out to meet Clark and soon Roderick, who urgently greets the princess. He updates Pride on Arthur's progress before the son in question comes running with his father's forgotten sword. Once Arthur notices Pride though, he gets embarrassed and tries to leave without explanation. Stale suddenly comes up and requests Arthur to become his practice partner. Arthur is surprised but agrees to the request. Thus, the two boys head to an open hall, where Stale begins training with Arthur. Arthur notices a strange intention behind Stale's friendly smile and feels uneasy. Suddenly, Stale launches a swift attack, while Arthur quickly blocks. Stale praises him for being so talented, while Arthur keeps feeling uncomfortable. Suddenly though, Stale reveals his reasons for fighting for Pride. He mentions that he just wants this kind-hearted girl to be happy, and she always needs a strong guardian by her side. Stale recognizes Arthur's strength and love for Pride, and desires for him to become a strong knight worthy of protecting their reckless future queen. Arthur seems slightly confused by Stale's behavior, and Pride's worry about turning evil, but he accepts Stale's challenge. He also remarks that Stale's suspicious smile is similar to Gilbert's, which embarrasses the boy. Happy to accompany him as a shield for Pride, Arthur decides to train with Stale to improve his abilities at a rapid speed. Both boys are getting along well as they agree to begin training. One day, Tiara, Pride, and Stale are reading books in the library. Pride points out that the hero of her romance novel looks like Stale, while Tiara notices that the heroine looks like Pride, which makes Stale hide himself in embarrassment. This action makes Pride think that Stale is disappointed to be a couple with her. Later, Pride is called into her room by her parents. They reveal that the criminal from the battlefield has been identified, and he was involved with selling out information on their friendly kingdoms, so enemies could launch an ambush on their forces. As guards bring in the criminal named Val, who has the Earth ability, Rosa asks Pride to deliver judgment. Pride thinks about it and braces herself before announcing that the man should either be executed for his crimes or live as a servant if he helps the kingdom find any hostages. Pride asks Val himself about his fate, and he agrees to live as a servant. Rosa approves of Pride's judgment and hands her the contract. Thus, Pride begins narrating the laws on the contract, which force Val to obey the royal family and never resort to violence. Afterward, Stale meets Pride outside where he requests her to let him join any crucial meetings in the future. Pride agrees and they go to visit Val. Pride gets Val angry at her before ordering him to protect Tiara if she ever encounters danger, or that he turn to Pride for help if he ever needs it. As the cussing Val is taken away, Pride wonders if she did the right thing. Stale asks Pride why she'd let such a horrible criminal go, and Pride tells him that since Val is bound to obey her anyway, she doesn't want to take his life away for no reason. He smiles, impressed by her magnanimity. However, Tiara asks Pride if she's a burden to her, so Pride explains that she just wants to protect her precious sister. She holds both Tiara and Stale's hands and tells them how much she loves the two, wishing to live happily forever with them. Sometime later, Stale and Arthur are about to begin another training session. Still, Arthur's surprised when Tiara and Pride show up to watch. After some sparring, Pride brings over some flower crowns she and Tiara got, presenting 2 crowns she specifically chose for the boys. Pride gives her heartfelt compliments and love as both of them blush furiously at her attention. Then, they realize there aren't enough flowers for Pride, so both boys put their crowns on her head. Pride smiles and gives them a flower to pin on their head before sharing a crown with her little sister. Afterward, Arthur says goodbye to Pride and the rest as he prepares for his knighthood exam. Now, 13 years old, Pride feels happy to have settled into her new life. 2 years later, Arthur completes his knight training and exam and is personally awarded a knighthood by Pride herself. Much more grown up, Arthur kisses his sword, finally fulfilling his promise to become Pride's guardian. Later, Arthur meets up with Stale, who seems to be in a bad mood after someone tells him his smile looks like Gilbert's. Arthur chuckles at this before giving Stale a gift. As he opens the gift, Pride and Tiara come in and see that Arthur brought a pair of sunglasses. They are curious why Arthur would pick this gift, and he tells them it suits the mature Stale. The kids are interrupted by Gilbert, who is visiting Pride. He asks for her help with a specific matter, which confuses her. Still, her father, Albert, suddenly pops out of nowhere and drags Gilbert away. Pride tells Stale that Gilbert is trying to pass a law, allowing the royal family to track down and monitor particular power users. This law seemed invasive, so Pride rejected it. She then thinks about something and asks Stale to take her where Gilbert is. They teleport outside a room where Gilbert can be heard arguing with Albert. He mocks Albert for ignoring a royal law and allowing Stale to visit his birth mother because Pride has begged them for several days to do so. Listening outside, Stale is shocked that Pride did such a thing for him, but then he hears Gilbert's sad voice. Ever since 7 years ago, a person close to Gilbert had been ill, and he has been looking for a person with healing powers for her. From this, Pride finally remembers from the game that Gilbert, who has the power of eternal youth, was forced by the evil Pride into looking like an older man for the rest of his life. The cruel queen had accepted Gilbert's request to track down people with special powers. However, she only enslaved them for herself and killed anyone who resisted her. This nightmare wakes Pride up from her sleep, and she remembers that Gilbert's fiancé died soon after the law had been passed. She walks outside thinking about what to do when a commotion disturbs her. Pride learns from Albert that Gilbert had left the castle and thinks back to something. She realizes that the evil Pride wouldn't really listen to anyone's opinions before rashly making a decision. Thus, his fiancé must have died on the same day the law had passed. This means she only has until sunset to save Gilbert's fiancé. Pride asks Stale to teleport her to Gilbert. Meanwhile, we see Gilbert surrounded by a bunch of hooligans somewhere else. He asks the men if they know about any healers, only to get laughed at. Gilbert offers them wealth and even secrets about the royal family, but the men laugh at him again. They seem more interested in his money and attack the nobleman. Although Gilbert is a noble, he can defend himself, but the sheer number of attackers puts him in a danger. Luckily, Pride and Stale arrive just in time to defeat all the foes. Stale faces Gilbert, and Pride warns him that she foresaw his fiancé's death. This devastates Gilbert, who recalls all of his memories with her. Maria was the young daughter of a count who had always been sick and bedridden. She would sneak out of her house to spend time outside, and during one of these times, she met Gilbert. Gilbert took this sweet young lady to a gorgeous view outside the city, where they both fell in love. From then onward, Gilbert would regularly meet this girl. Unfortunately, he one day learned that Maria was engaged. This broke Gilbert's heart, but Maria told him he was the one she truly loved. Thus, after working hard to become Chancellor of the Kingdom, Gilbert went to Maria's house with a proposal her family couldn't refuse. However, shortly after they got engaged, Maria fell very sick, which completely shattered Gilbert. As Gilbert remembers all of this, Stale points a sword at his head for his crime of selling out the royal family. Gilbert falls to his knees, while Stale brutally trashes him and even his poor fiancé for his crimes. Pride steps in to stop him, her kind heart empathizing with Gilbert's situation. She thanks Stale for watching over her, but comforts Gilbert with the news that he and his fiancée are forgiven. Later in the castle, Tiara meets Pride and asks about the situation with Gilbert. While they're talking, Gilbert anxiously bursts into the room and screams for Pride's help. She immediately runs off and gets Stale to teleport her to the knights. There, she meets Arthur, from whom she requests a massive favor. Pride is worried that Arthur will take this life-changing step for her, but the knight is even willing to die for her sake. She turns around and sees an older version of Stale, but with no time to explain, Pride gets him to teleport them to Gilbert's location. They get teleported to a room with a very sick Maria on the bed. Pride tells Arthur to lay his hand on the dying woman, and reveals that his power is not growing crops, but healing living creatures. Gilbert watches as Maria quickly gains color and gets up from the bed. The two lovers hug each other and the situation is saved thanks to Pride using her future knowledge about Arthur. Later, Pride learns that Gilbert transformed Stale into an adult version of himself so he could run faster. Gilbert thanks Pride for saving his dear lover and confesses all his sins to her. Pride asks if he's ready to confess his sins to her parents before saying she will rid him of his guilt. Pride then asks everyone in the room to forget everything they saw and heard about Gilbert, which shocks him. He wonders if he has been forgiven, but Pride has a punishment for his grave crimes. She orders him to continue living with his immortality and working as the faithful chancellor of the country as punishment, which drives Gilbert to tears from her mercy. Pride knows that Gilbert can live forever, and if he chooses to do so, he will be a great asset to the kingdom. Gilbert happily accepts and vows to fulfill his promise. Pride seems a bit apologetic about the punishment, but Gilbert doesn't mind. Instead, he does something neither of Pride's two admirers, Arthur and Stale, couldn't. Gilbert kisses her hand before kissing her foot and leg, an ancient custom for showing complete loyalty. The boys watch on in jealousy and envy as Gilbert performs this action on the lovely princess. Both Gilbert and Maria swear their loyalty to the kingdom for Pride's kindness, and the matter is completely closed. Later, Arthur talks to Stale in a room. Stale asks him if he can continue being a knight after discovering his power, or if he will become a healer instead. Still, Arthur remains confident that he will forever be a strong knight. Arthur then changes the topic and asks if Stale is okay with Gilbert being forgiven, to which he responds yes. However, the knight is not so quickly convinced and pushes Stale to be honest. Thus, the angry boy starts venting his frustrations about the princess letting Gilbert go, despite all the horrible things he said about her. He feels like he isn't protecting Pride enough, but Arthur rushes to comfort him. He tells Stale that before Arthur even knew about Pride, the town was filled with nasty rumors about Pride's character. However, the rumors had died down after some time, clearly due to Stale's hard work. Arthur then tells Stale he protected Pride from what he could, but he should not expect himself to be able to protect her all the time. To reassure him, he offers his own protection whenever Stale isn't around for Pride. Stale is surprised and compliments Arthur for being so mature, but Arthur dismisses it, saying he was even worse at Stale's age. Stale feels like he has acted too weak and decides never to get vulnerable or cry again. This shocks Arthur, who wonders if he'll genuinely act this way forever. But Stale says that he'll wait until he's 18 to say his true feelings to Pride. Arthur agrees and supports him, and both boys grow an even deeper bond. Later at night, a group is attending Gilbert and Maria's wedding. There, Tiara asks Stale if he genuinely hates Gilbert or not. While Stale is bitter about Gilbert's crimes, he admits that he's happy that he get together with his lover. Tiara then points out another reason Stale hates Gilbert, his fantastic confidence and competence. This makes Stale blush from embarrassment, and Gilbert shows up at just the right time to greet them. Like a proper tsundere, Stale says he hates him, but Gilbert takes his words lightly. Afterward, Gilbert proudly announces his marriage to Maria to everyone attending, finally getting a happy life with his lover. Some days later, the royal family holds an Imperial Guard exam for the knights. Arthur participates in this exam and dominates his fellows, becoming a personal guard of the royal family. Now he gets to be around Pride in her personal life. As the group is traveling in a carriage together, they encounter a fallen man in the street who surprisingly turns out to be Val. Later, Val wakes up in a room covered with bandages. He sees everyone around him, and Pride realizes he returned after the contract forced him to ask for help. She asks him why he needs her help, but Val claims he doesn't, realizing he's too proud to admit what he needs. Pride forces Val to tell her what's going on using her contract with him. He tells her that he needs to free two kids, Sefik and Kemet, his family that were kidnapped by traffickers. He mentions that although the kidnappers wanted 5 more kids in exchange, they probably wouldn't accept the offer anyway. Pride thinks about it and realizes Val is entirely helpless. She says he'll be under house arrest for a bit and gets ready to act against the criminals. Later, Pride faces Val in her room, where he seems annoyed by her presence. The man throws a knife at her, which barely misses. Pride and Stale are enraged by his action, while Pride remains unfazed. She tells Val to eat and rest well for the hostage recovery operation, which pisses him off. Val screams at her that he doesn't need any help, and Tiara asks him if he doesn't want to save the kids. She asks if Val isn't even concerned for their well-being, and the man admits that he wants to keep the kids because he wants to live comfortably. This heartlessness brings tears to Tiara's eyes, who thinks he's using the kids as mere servants. Pride comforts Tiara before telling an angry Stale and Arthur to leave them alone. She wonders why he wants to save the kids before asking the man how he met them. Val reveals that the kids were just orphans living in his abandoned house. Apparently, they had started following him for protection, annoying him with their company ever since. Pride learns that Val is annoyed by their presence, but then wonders why he's so worried. Val starts telling her more about the kids, saying Sefik is a young girl who uses the power to shoot water to protect Kemet, a little boy who only follows his sister around. As Val mentions little things about the kids, Pride notes that he cares about them and asks if he's worried. Val answers no, and she asks about the things he considers precious. The criminal answers that money and life are the only things that matter. His parents had abandoned him, and he had never had friends and thus didn't care. Then, Pride asks him if he would care if something happened to Kemet and Sefik. Val hesitates and suddenly gets angry at her. He denies that he cares at all about the kids, rolling over in pain. The man feels nausea and pain in his heart whenever thinking about the two kids, and he pins down Pride in his anger for making him realize this pain. He blames her for letting him live and letting him develop caring feelings towards other people, saying that the heartache is crushing his soul. As Pride watches Val cry awkwardly, confused about his feelings, she realizes that Val wants to help the two kids calm the discomfort and pain in his heart because of his love for them. She hugs the broken man, comforting and helping him understand his own feelings. Since Val was a homeless, orphaned boy, he wasn't used to caring for other people, and the unknown feeling of love and worry had terrified him. This truth is extremely sad for Pride, who hugs him tightly. The next day, Val meets up with the kidnappers. He offers them 5 children that are the royal family turned into kids by Gilbert, of course. The kidnappers don't actually return Sefik and Kemet and capture them all instead. On the carriage, as the group is being transported, they remember that Gilbert had revealed the Queen had ordered to exterminate the kidnapper gang and save all the hostages. Gilbert's ability to turn everyone back into children had quite a shocking effect. As they reach their destination, Stale teleports his handcuffs away. One of the kidnappers comes in and immediately attacks him for trying to escape, but Stale teleports the man to a jail cell. More and more criminals end up in prison as the group starts focusing on saving the hostages. The knights beat up the criminals for the hideout location and head out for their operation. Meanwhile, the group explores the gang's base, hidden within a cave. They learn that high-value people with special powers are hidden deep within and are transported to a cell with ordinary people. Inside, they hear some kids calling out for Val and realize they are Sefik and Kemet who have been hiding their powers. Meanwhile, somewhere deep within the cave, Stale is exploring the place with Val. They find the high-grade cell and rescue everyone there before Stale notices a glowing light nearby. Suddenly, a guard finds the two of them and pulls out a gun before Stale teleports in some dynamite as a distraction. He runs away towards the light while Val holds off the guard and creates a commotion. Back in the mid-grade cell, the guards get an alert to the attack and run away, leaving the cell vulnerable. Everyone inside gets out at the opportunity. Back to the light, Stale is shocked as he sees a young boy tremble with electricity. The young man is named Powell, and his electricity zaps everyone nearby. He refuses Stale's help, saying he doesn't want to go back and hurt anyone else, but Stale reassures him that the kingdom is a safe place. The boy remains unconvinced, and Stale realizes he needs to take action. Stepping closer and closer to Powell as the electricity zaps him, Stale tells him about the new, kind ruler of the Frisia kingdom, who promised to make it a better place for all its citizens. The boy is shocked that Stale would bear so much pain to get closer to him and calms down, losing all his hostility. Thus, Stale is able to teleport him to a safe place, but not before getting heavily injured and passing out. Meanwhile, the Royal Knights arrive back at the middle camp to help. However, the guards manage to take Val hostage as Gilbert tries to fend them off. As the knights head to find Stale, the leader of the guards, a man with special powers to create an attack with chains, captures both Arthur and Val with a firm grip. It seems hopeless as the knights refuse to endanger their own people, but suddenly, Pride runs in and slices apart the chains with her sword. She bravely challenges the man, who is surprised by her raw strength and skill, to a fight. The man expects a good fight, but Pride takes the upper hand and gets a knight to execute the criminal. Suddenly, an explosion outside the cave shakes everyone. As the group rushes outside, Val overhears that the explosion created a massive crater where 2 young kids were seen. Worried, he rushes to reach the location faster. When he finally reaches the location, he meets Sefik but sees no sign of Kemet anywhere. Sefik points to some rubble where Kemet is trapped. Val peeks into a hole in the wreckage and calls out for Kemet. Thankfully, the boy is alive and can breathe through the hole. Still, the situation is clearly dire since he needs to get out before more of the rubble collapses on top of him. Pride tries to help Val, but the trembling cave seems to be unstable. Val refuses her help and tells her to go outside, requesting that she keep this matter personal for him. Pride respects his wishes and leaves, as Val blocks off the path with rocks. Then Pride makes it outside where she meets Sefik. The girl is devastated that her family is still there, but she's powerless to do anything. A little water gun splashes a knight who prevents her from rushing back in. Pride thinks about what she can do for Kemet and Val, and Gilbert tells her that Kemet might just have the ability to save the situation. Thus, she heads back to where the rubble is, which surprises Val. Pride tells Val to reach in and take Kemet's hand, which he does, but worries if she wants to help him pull the children through the massive rocks. However, after Val does get Kemet's hand, Pride tells him to manipulate the entire cave and destroy the rubble, blocking Kemet. Val thinks she has gone insane, but somehow he feels powerful enough to actually activate the rocks in the whole cave and destroy the rubble. Overjoyed, he hugs the scared Kemet, as Pride realizes Kemet's natural ability is actually enhancing other people's unique skills. This explained why Sefik could power huge jets with Kemet, but only uses little water guns alone. As the cave begins to shake more and more, Val makes a rock ship to take the group outside the collapsing cave. As the group heaves a sigh of relief outside, somewhere nearby, a group of suspicious people watches them escape. They seem to be surprised that they could make it out alive before dropping even more bombs below. These bombs trap Sefik on a cliff that seems to be falling. Val screams her name and rushes to toss her back to safety, but falls down himself when the cliff dislodges. Falling down to his death, the once heartless criminal wondered when he got so attached to those two kids. Recalling memories, he remembers that after he had returned home from his punishment, he found two children living in his abandoned old home. The kids seemed to trust Val and began following him around everywhere for protection. Val found them annoying, but did nothing to stop them. Slowly, he became increasingly attached to the kids and gave them their names. As Sefik learned to use her ability to create water to sell, the three of them started living comfortably. However, one day, their happiness sadly came to an end when the kidnapper gang took the two children. Since Val was bound by his contract with Pride to never attack anyone, he could only watch on in helplessness as they took his only family away from him. Back in the present, Val seems prepared for death, but is shocked when the future queen jumps down and makes a strange signal. This signal wakes up the injured Stale outside, who teleports to her and takes them all away from the cave. Sefik and Kemet rush up to hug their adoptive father, as he smiles with relief, and Pride happily hugs Stale. After a few weeks of the cave incident, we see Pride chat with Arthur and Stale. Despite being unable to catch the bombers, the kingdom seems to be at peace. The group gets surprised when Val, Sefik, and Kemet come hurtling on a rock toward their group. It looks like Val is making full use of Kemet's ability and performing a job as a delivery man. Pride smiles at the three of them, who look much better than they used to be. For Val's help with the operation, she offers to make them the official carriers of the royal family. The two kids become overjoyed at the news, while Val smiles at Pride. She also tells him that the kingdom plans on making free schools and invites Sefik and Kemet to study and grow with them. After making sure that she truly means what she said, Val accepts her offer, joking that he would have been forced to obey her as a servant anyways. Val gets down and prepares to kneel to show his respect, as Pride nervously blushes. He kisses her feet like the tradition, but Val throws in some spice as he licks them, shocking everyone and embarrassing the poor princes. He laughs loudly, showing that troublemaker spirit. Then Val asks for compensation while the group glares at him for disrespectful actions. Pride pouts but agrees to give it. Stale tells her that she doesn't need to do it, but Val reminds the group that he is completely broke. Then, as Pride prepares to leave the place, Val follows the group, teasing her about her jealous prince. Arthur also gets upset by this, which makes Val tease him as well. He mocks Pride for being with such inexperienced, shy boys, and offers to give her much more than they can deliver. Of course, Pride immediately rejects his bold flirting before she prepares to leave. Val finally gets serious and thanks Pride for inviting his kids to her school. Later, Pride watches Arthur fight Gilbert, but gets schooled miserably. Gilbert quickly slams him down, and Stale cheers him on. However, Gilbert suddenly offers to teach Arthur a secret technique if he can land a hit. This also gets Stale fired up, who decides to fight Gilbert with Arthur. Gilbert allows the two boys to come at him together. As the fight gets more intense, Pride cheers for her two boys before she is surprised by a returning Val. Val is surprised that the boys are seriously fighting over her, but Pride corrects his misunderstanding. Then Tiara gets up to play with Sefik and Kemet and offers cake to them as well. The kids are delighted, and as Tiara heads to eat with them, Val begins to follow them but instinctively takes Pride's hand. As Arthur and Stale forget what they were doing in pure jealousy, realizing what he was doing, Val immediately lets go and leaves angrily. Pride seems confused by this behavior, while the innocent Kemet asks Val if he hates or likes Pride. As Val denies liking the girl, he remembers all the times she confronted him and helped him out. Even the young Sefik can see his blushing face from a mile away. Back to a confused Pride, she decides to concentrate on cheering her boys on for their fight. As she shouts lovely praise to boost their confidence, the boys end up falling from her sweet words instead, nervous and happy. However, when Pride requests them to win for her sake, both of them get up with determined glows in their eyes. This surprises the calm Gilbert, who realizes their love for Pride is boosting their morale. The boys charge, and this time, they're able to defeat the cunning martial artist. Later, the two boys collapse from exhaustion and discuss their feelings for Pride. Arthur recalls how, even back in the cave, it was Stale who used his teleportation to save Pride from the cliff. He feels sad and unworthy of being Pride's protector, but Stale tells him to keep his head high. He reminds Arthur that while he was unconscious, it was he who charged in the battle and protected Gilbert and Pride. This restores some of Arthur's confidence, as Stale tells him that he can feel safe with him around. Arthur gets up and remembers how much he has changed from a sniveling brat to a strong knight. The boys are interrupted when Pride comes rushing for them with a handkerchief. She cleans up the boys while speaking soothing words that steal their hearts. Stale thinks back, feeling happy that he can protect Pride. He also remembers the poor power user, Powell, who needed protection and care. He tells Pride that he just wants to become a respectful gentleman, and not just for her sake, and Pride agrees to support him. She smiles, feeling blessed and truly happy to have two loyal and noble men at her side. Both boys take her hands and vow to always protect her and her sister, reminding her that they have pledged their loyalty to their future queen. Pride smiles, feeling totally fulfilled. Sometime later in her room, the future queen thinks back to the evil Pride's actions in the game. Knowing she has a few more years left before her in-game death, Pride remains determined to do the best she can for her family and people. As a reminder, this world is based on an ultimate game called Our Ray of Light, or ORL. Truck-kun claimed another meal in its cycle of isekai life, and our girl died at 18. Rest in peace. Then, the memories of her past life came rushing back to her. She was now Pride Royal Ivy, firstborn princess of the Kingdom of Frisia, the eldest sister of the game's protagonist, Tiara, and, to her love interests, the source of all tragedy, the most heretical last boss, Villainess. Stale told Pride to let him know of any way he could be of help. Tiara let her know she was excited for tomorrow. Chancellor Gilbert promised to ensure her birthday celebration proceeded without a hitch. Tomorrow, Pride was turning 16, and in this country, that's when women were considered adults. That's why tomorrow's celebration was a very special day. If she couldn't prove she had what it takes to be queen, or even the slightest problem occurred, then there'll be more than just bad rumors that spread about her. Gilbert knocked her out of her daze to reassure her he'd be there by her side. He seemed a bit down, looking over at Stale, but neither of them would elaborate. She wondered if Stale was nervous about tomorrow's festivities too, feeling she wasn't the most reliable as the firstborn princess and heir to the throne, as well as the eldest sister. She needed to avoid making a disgrace of herself. During sword training, Arthur could feel Stale was way less into it than usual. He slashed Stale's sword away and told him if something was on his mind to just spit it out. Stale picked it back up, and as they continued, he mentioned with Pride's 16th birthday, her fiancé would be announced at the celebration as well. He was afraid she'd forgotten about that. That's how seriously she's been working on the new school system. No one wanted to distract her from that, so they hadn't brought it up. He was more than prepared to devote his heart and soul to serve as seneschal to both her and her fiancé, but only if he approved of her fiancé as someone worthy of her. He needed to know, so he dug into her fiancé personally. The man was extremely outstanding and a distinguished firstborn prince of an allied nation, the Kingdom of Anemone. It all sounded ideal, except he was rumored to be a womanizer and a flirt to an extreme degree. The most notorious playboy in the entire Anemone Kingdom. That's who she's getting engaged to. At the party, Tiara would mention Pride looked great in her dress, and Stale flusteredly agreed, although thinking showing less skin might be prudent. Roderick and the Knights wished her a happy birthday, commending her for being a truly admirable princess. Vice Captain Clark laid it on smooth, kissing her hand and telling her they were blessed she was born into their kingdom. She wasn't ready for that. She swore he and the captain weren't supposed to be love interests. Catching glimpses with the man of the hour, Pride fell back and Stale caught her. She suddenly remembered two of the game's love interests. The dark-haired man came forward, asking if she was alright. Outside, he apologized for not coming to pay his respects earlier, introducing himself as the firstborn prince of an enemy kingdom, Leon Adonis Coronaria. She returned the greeting. She couldn't believe she forgot about the fiancé who she got engaged to on her 16th birthday. Ultimately, he loses everything and has his heart broken at Pride's hands. He swiftly kissed her hand, catching her off guard as he told her he had never laid his eyes on someone as beautiful as her. Her heart wasn't ready. Her mother hadn't announced anything yet. She didn't know what to do. His character was so different from the one at the start of the game. Back inside, her mother announced the introduction of Pride's betrothal, and Leon began his walk forward. Their engagement would further strengthen the alliance between kingdoms. He kneeled, kissed her hand, and told her he'd love her with all his heart. And while everyone clapped, the supporting cast did not seem happy. Starting now, Leon would spend 3 days at the castle and then return home. A week after, he'd come to fully live in the castle here as her fiancé. The next 10 days would be significant. In the future, he'd scurry around his bed for her to leave him alone. She'd tell him, "Don't be like that, Leon. Your darling, beloved fiancé is here to pay you a visit." He'd chant, "I love you, I love you," with frantic fear, and she broke out in laughter, telling him she loved him too. But with them not married, he was only the prince consort in name, and everyone hated him. Even the former king of Anemone told him to never come back. She wondered what would happen if she chose to break off their engagement. She then remembered her sister had been coming to spend time with him lately. It might make her have another jealous fit. To protect Tiara, he'd tell Pride he didn't feel any way about her sister, swearing he only loved her. She absolutely loved watching him weep. This face he made was her absolute favorite. She promised to never let go of her cute little toy. But if he cheated ever again, she'd let him avoid punishment, but only him. The strange dream she had last night was a lot for her. On a walk with Leon, he'd tell her he felt quite fortunate to be able to spend time together. Leon was a magnificent prince who had all the skills and temperament to be king. However, rumors of his philandering spread far, causing him to be ostracized from his kingdom. Then, engaged to the atrocious and diabolical Queen Pride. Ultimately, he was so badly traumatized by her that he developed a severe and intense fear of people. He'd lose all status and influence and end up prince in name only. Understandably, there's no romance between Pride and Leon in the game. Taking a break together, he'd pull her close, whispering, "I love you," more than anyone and anything. Ugh, she couldn't take it. The flirt archetype was working his magic. She never stood out in her old life and hadn't been anyone's love interest. Even after getting reincarnated. She really thinks no one is into her, huh? This was just too much for her. But even so, she had to get a grip and accept his advances and not shy away. She needed to earn his trust before he went back. She told herself to forget about being nervous, shy, or anything like that, because his murmurs of love were all lies anyways. In her bedroom that evening, she'd get a surprise visit from Val, who brought Sefik and Kemet. He'd give a casual, "Hey, princess. Grew up to be good looking, eh?" Though he still didn't think her body filled out as much. He brought her correspondence from Yabaron Kingdom. Also, a letter of congratulations on her engagement. After chatting a bit about her fiancé and sighing, Val offered to take her away if she didn't want to marry him. He was her servant after all. He could easily get her out of here, if she wished. She could experience freedoms on the run, like nothing else. He thought using his power to support 3 kids would be easy. She began to chuckle. Not the reaction he was expecting. She was just thinking that living a life on the run with him would be nice. If her, as queen, just up and vanished, Tiara could safely ascend the throne and have her pick of eligible bachelors like Arthur, Stale, Prince Leon, and the other suitor. And together, they'd lead the kingdom into peace. But she couldn't take Val's hand right now. Even as this world's worst queen and problematic last boss, she'd come to love this nation and its people. She wanted to fight fate for as long as she could. This is where she wanted to be, queen to the end. She'd thank Val and told him if she ever truly did lose her place here, she'd be happy if he took her in. He grabbed her hand, telling her there's no if, just one order and he'd take her away. She was stunned, but accepted. Should it ever be needed, she told him to please take her. With him and the kids about to take off, she told him she was so glad he was in her life. He went to reach for her face, but stopped himself and patted her on the head. He told her when the time came and she seriously wanted to ditch everything, then he'd make sure to spend the rest of his life making sure she could live with him. Eventually, Pride would take Leon on a tour to the capital. He thought Frisia was so lovely. Seeing them together made Stale upset. He just kept thinking about how Leon put up a front to be perfect, but really thought of him as a player. He noticed Arthur was shaking uncontrollably as well. Later, he'd teleport to where Arthur was privately. Arthur hated that Pride was going to marry Prince Leon. He understood the importance of royal marriage, but thought that guy was no good. Stale tried to calm him down, but Arthur wouldn't accept him. It pissed him off so much. He crushed the chair with his grip. Their creepy smiles only angered him. It was all unnatural. These masks remind me of the meme. You guys know what that meme is? It's like the Redditor one. Stale couldn't believe it. He didn't realize they were faking their smiles the entire time. He didn't mind if it was just Leon, but why his sister as well? He didn't understand. With Leon taking off the next day, Pride told them to please keep their promise. Leon gave a distraught look. Stale would ask what her promise was, but got cut off by Val's boisterous outburst. He brought many gifts from the first princess of REBORN for her birthday. She gave him a secret request he wasn't expecting, and to her, this was all fine. The memories of her past life gave her the insight she needed to take action here. She was the only one who could bring Prince Leon happiness. Stale walked through the halls, reflecting on what he had heard from the queen. The reason why Prince Leon was chosen as Pride's fiancé is despite the Anemone Kingdom having a second and third prince, she thought only Leon would suit her. The king of Anemone wished for this as well. Stale thought that explanation just didn't add up, but also, as per his request, the king allowed Stale to apprentice under Vest starting next week. Studying under Uncle Vest meant he'd practically have no time to be with Pride. He was willing to accept it though, as long as he benefited her and the rest of the kingdom, even if that meant he was no longer needed at her side. But the thought of her and Leon together forced tears to well up in his eyes. Outside, Tiara asked Stale if he was done speaking with their mother. He seemed a bit in a daze and told her he was probably just tired. Only then did he notice Pride was sleeping on her lap. She said she could hardly sleep last night. Oh no. Stale's imagining Pride getting cracked, and he's not happy about that. Tiara told Stale to rest beside her. She's been really lonely these past 3 days. She felt like Leon had taken her sister away. But then, Pride invited her to the gardens and hugged her with everything she had. Tiara thought Pride noticed she was feeling lonely and did it to comfort her. Pride slowly opened her eyes and hopped onto Stale's lap. She told him she missed him. He'd pat, comfort her, and told her he missed her too, and that it was okay. He'd always be here, even apart. His heart would always be with her, even not next to her. Even if she fell in love with that man, he still belonged to her, body and soul. Arthur, exhausted and tired, lit up seeing Pride's bright, smiling face. She grabbed his face, concerned over the bags under his eyes. She apologized for not being able to speak with him the other day. She could see he forced himself to be their escort, even though he didn't feel well. There was something he wanted to ask her though. Was she happy? She told him she was. After all, she had him and everyone else with her. This was a relief for him. She wasn't just grinning and bearing it, but then he'd feel a tug and see her putting on a mask again while she said, "Oh, don't be silly." He fell down on a knee, asking to please be allowed to worry about her. He asked why she faked her smiles inside of the carriage. Why was she putting up a front? Did Leon have dirt on her or something? They were worried about her, and yet she still seemed so far away. She apologized and thanked them for their worry, but she promised she was fine. Arthur could see now that no matter how hard this was for her, she was dead set on taking it all on her own, as if she felt her destiny was to be a lone wolf. He wanted to protect her smile and told her he'd be by her side forever. If the man chosen as her partner was one that she liked, then he'd continue to protect their happiness. If he turned out not to be the one, then he'd protect Pride from him and take care of her in his place. He already dedicated everything to her long ago. Later, Pride would tell her mother she had a premonition and that she must go for the sake of the people to the Anemone Kingdom. She and Tiara would visit the two boys sparring. They had heard about the assignment already and were glad they could work together. Tiara asked what she was going to do at Anemone. Everyone was caught off guard by how serious Tiara was being. She asked if it had something to do with what she'd been hiding from them. Tiara knew she was powerless, not even asking to accompany Pride, but she still wanted to offer her emotional support. They were willing to listen to anything Pride had to say, even if it was hypothetical, and none of them would falter, even if things didn't turn out as she expected. Tiara just wanted Pride to tell them what was on her mind. The night before, Leon told her, "You are more stunning than even the stars in the sky when you're bathed in moonlight. Pride, I think we should come here together as one tonight, right here." Dang, he's smooth, but I don't know if he's smoother than Saikuno here. She gestured him over her, telling him plainly if he wanted to get intimate, she was fine with that. They were engaged to be married after all, but as he went for her lips, he stopped with her telling him this wasn't something their relationship needed. She told him it was okay. He performed very well these past 3 days. Anyone would agree he had the demeanor of the perfect fiancé. He didn't understand what she was saying, but she would make it clear he didn't have to perform in front of her. There was no need to lie to himself and pretend there was love here. Now, with the tables turned, she asked he make her a promise. In exchange, she'd keep tonight's events to herself, and they could play the happy couple again tomorrow. She was the firstborn princess of Frisia, first in line to the throne, and had the special ability of foresight. She was the only person in the world who knew his true desires. She told him not to leave the castle for an entire week after returning to his country, not even to check around, especially on the last day. That was when he'd lose everything, the trust of his people, and even the king. These instructions were important for his happiness. After hearing what she told him, the guys were embarrassed. They thought she and Leon smashed. Although, she did skip the part where he tried. Stale understood. This was a secret visit to ensure Leon didn't leave the castle to prevent her premonition from coming true. So if he tried, they would stop him before he was found by the kingdom's guards. This graceful behavior from Leon would only be a black mark on both their kingdoms. Arthur fell to the floor, relieved because he had imagined so much worse. He was way off the mark, dragging Stale into it and making her worry about them instead. Pride reassured Arthur, apologizing for not giving him a proper answer when he asked her before. She called him amazing for noticing she was having a hard time right away. Telling him it made her happy got him jolting up and blushing. The friends wanted Pride not to bear the burden all alone. They were here for her. They didn't want her to suffer on her own. In Anemone, Leon reflected over Pride's warning. Then, his father's words telling him that as first prince, he must set the example for his younger brothers, to do as much as he could to become a king the people desired. From a young age, his life revolved around learning what he needed to be king. However, he'd often fixate on what a king the people desired. His father would bring him before the people, and they'd cheer and praise him. It was a spiritual awakening for him. He wanted to be loved by the people. He wanted them to desire him, to covet him, not anyone else. His younger brother would criticize him for his dangerous thoughts that could be considered attention-craving, narcissistic, and possessive. These labels would tank his good reputation. Leon would never forget the shock he felt hearing those words. He knew he had to get rid of these distasteful emotions, and temporarily refrained from even leaving the castle. But his body and soul still demanded it. His other brother then suggested he dedicate himself to socializing with members of high society, and following the advice, he'd socialize the young ladies around his age. But then noticed the cravings these ladies exhibited towards him were attention craving, narcissism, and possessiveness. It frightened him. He was aghast that he had directed such horrible emotions towards the people he swore to protect. In the end, he couldn't provide any of what they sought from him, and the rumor that he was a womanizer spread. He desired to be prince consort of the kingdom of Frisia, and thereby bring peace to both kingdoms. He felt inadequate as a king, older brother, and a human. This was all he could do. Over dinner, his father would tell him they might call the engagement off. He wanted to discuss it with the Frisian queen and prince consort again. He was sorry for the uncertainty he caused in Leon's life. Arriving in Anemone, Prince and Stale were disguised as Lady Jeanne and Lord Philip. She hoped everything would go smoothly. Tomorrow, depending on the conversation between his father and the Queen of Frisia, Leon lamented over the shame the annulment of his engagement would bring. Or his engagement stays in place despite the disrespect he showed the kingdom of Frisia, and thus be unable to return to his home kingdom. There were no happy routes for him. His brothers would visit, offering him clothes so he could escape from the castle in disguise. They wanted his happiness above all else. That was Leon's true desire, to leave the castle and mingle with the people. That was also what his brothers desired. But he apologized, telling them he couldn't go through with it. They asked why, and Leon thought back to Pride's premonition. The brothers accepted, then offered one gift before departing to celebrate his engagement: a glass of wine. He'd somehow find himself in disguise, waking up in a tavern. The whipping torture and screams from the victims was intense as Prince Leon begged Pride to stop because his people were dying. It's crazy because this episode just opens this way and it really made me laugh. She teased, asking why. He showed up late for their date because he was too busy drinking the night away with these people. She whipped another man and let off maniacal laughter because she didn't know a human could make such a sound from that kind of pain. To make things worse, Pride knew this was going to happen. She saw Leon's future. She saw it all from the day she met him, and she was getting so jealous. Dang. Yandere girlfriend neurons activated. He pleaded with her, admitting he chose to spend the night with his people rather than the morning with her. He wanted to take responsibility for it all. However, Pride would use that to turn the tables on him again. This would be considered treason against Pride, and by extension, the kingdom of Frisia. That was grounds for Frisia to launch an immediate invasion on the Anemone kingdom. He began to shake. As she told him, he humiliated her with a sarcastic tone, and they were going to raze his whole nation to the ground. If the folks from the tavern were the ones to blame, they'd be executed here. but if he was the one to blame, they'd go to war. She's giving him a trolley problem for her sick amusement. With him squeaking out, "I'm not to blame," she laughed even harder, saying, "That's what I thought," as the hanging people begged, saying he was wrong, that they were innocent. Pride asked Leon if he loved her. He told her, "I love you, I love you, I love you," with desperation, and so she threw her blade beside him. She wanted him to prove it, end his people all by his own hand. She continued to taunt him, but still, he slashed with fury, pierced one after another until they were all dead. That's the dream he woke up from in the tavern. The place was lively. 2 girls would come up to him, checking if he got left behind, since he showed up here like this. The guys wanted him to have as much fun as possible. After all, the men who left him here left a huge bag of money behind for everyone to enjoy. They all cheered at the idea of drinking until the sun came up. Leon's vision was blurry. He was so close to their voices and their smiles. Just like he always wanted to be. He remembered someone telling him not to leave the castle, but he couldn't remember who that was. He had a feeling the warning was very important though. The girls lifted him, as he remembered the woman telling him he'd be forced to drink excessively, and he'd lose the trust of his people, as well as his father. With them reaching for his face, he was desperate to not let it happen. Suddenly, rocks flooded the room. Everything went dark. Val safely captured the prince and made his way out. Stale teleported the squad where Val was waiting outside. He moved the pretty boy right where Pride asked him to prior. Of course, Val had followed everything to a T to get the prince out without anyone recognizing his identity. He removed the wall and revealed the sleeping prince. Pride stared at him with a hurt look and had Stale send Leon back to be cared for. Caleb Bordeaux, 3rd Division Knight Captain of Frisia, was leading there. He suspected based on Leon's condition, he'd been drugged hard. Val recognized it having come from the underworld. The concoction was likely a combination of sleeping pills and narcotics, which, in his experience, was especially useful for human trafficking. Caleb assumed someone had drugged Leon at the pub, but Val already knew Leon was drugged when he had left the castle. He watched 2 men carry Leon to the pub, who forced alcohol on him before throwing some money down and leaving. Everyone was in shock, taking in the fact Leon was drugged at the castle, while Pride tried to put the sequence of events together in her head. She suddenly grew angry and announced the ones who drugged Leon were 2nd Prince Erwin and 3rd Prince Homer. In the game, they frequently came to visit their heartbroken brother Leon. Then, when Tiara entered the Leon route, she happened to meet them outside of his room and learned a little bit about the truth of what happened 2 years earlier. They were jealous of their older brother being next in line for the throne and spread bad rumors about him. All the talk of him being flirtatious and womanizing were just lies with no basis. In the game, when Tiara probed further, the brothers said they only gave him a little alcohol. They told Tiara then Leon got drunk from some celebratory wine and tended to him before leaving him in his room. Then claimed he drunkenly wandered out the castle by himself, and Leon believed them. Once Tiara uncovered it all, she'd eventually revealed the truth to him. Pride was shaking with anger. She thought it would be okay if she convinced Leon not to leave the castle. She wasn't going to let the brothers get away with this. As a royal, she refused to let this absurdity stand. Leon woke up to Caleb watching over him. His head was still hurting. Learning he was at the pub, he began to panic. He needed to hurry home and see his fiancé, but Pride would walk in and tell him there was no need. She was so concerned after giving him advice that night, she came here undercover to see him. Seeing Stale, the prince consort was here as well. Leon quickly went to bow, but Pride stopped him. A member of the royal family should never beg pardon from a false charge like this. Leon felt terrible, even though Pride went out of her way to warn him that night. But she knew he was drugged and made to leave the castle against his will. She also knew the rumors about his womanizing around the town were entirely groundless, because the ones who drugged and framed him were his younger brothers. Leon couldn't believe this. He didn't want Pride to tell his father though, because they'd lose heirs to the throne, and that they must have done what they believed was best for the kingdom. Pride told him that was enough. Where did his purpose lie? What was his heartfelt desire? Right now, her and her knights were on his side. She was sure if they went to the king now, he'd listen to what he had to say. She asked him what it was he loved above all else, and with a shaking response, he told her he loved her, and her alone. She shoved him off, telling him to give it up. He didn't say that with his heart. She wasn't the one he loved. She wanted him to embrace his own desires. This was his only chance before everything slipped through his fingers. She knew what he loved most were the people of his nation. Tears welled up in his eyes as he thought of the people. He told her it was no use. He had to leave this country. Otherwise, his impure needs he had would affect the citizens he loved. He's fallen so in love with his people, but he couldn't expose them to his desires, narcissism, or possessiveness. He couldn't be king. She asked him what made him think he was unfit for the throne. There was nothing impure about his desire. Whose approval was he trying to get? There was no sin in wanting the approval of the people or wanting to become a king they desired. He's always loved them. He opened his heart to them. She spoke of Leon as a respectable person who always put others ahead of himself. In the game, Leon remained in the kingdom of Frisia as Pride's fiancé. As the days went on, and she continued tormenting him, he endured it all. It wasn't because he had no other place to go. He did it to maintain the alliance between Frisia and his beloved country. Even heartbroken and trapped in a room he could never escape from, he held fast. He learned from Pride that these feelings he had for his nation were not impure. It was okay for him to embrace his desires. His noble heart would surely guide him down the correct path. He would suddenly hug her tight and tell her he didn't want to leave the enemy kingdom. Trade relations were going well. In the future, they'd gather a lot of resources and the nation would undoubtedly become rich. The children in the city told him in the future they wanted to collect goods from around the world and become merchants. A month ago, farm families on the outskirts smiled and told him they had successfully cultivated new produce. They wanted him to eat them someday. Last time he went to town to observe, women let him hold their babies, even naming them after him. They hoped their children would grow up to be as kind as he was. Even after his bad reputation spread, every last one of them said they believed in him. He loved them, everyone in this country. That's exactly what Pride was hoping to hear. She came all this way to help him get everything back. All he needed to do was embrace his resolve and take her hand. She'd make sure he'd be happy. Leon was thankful Pride got him a change of clothes. He asked who it was that saved him from the pub. Pride called Val over. He was a bit worked up and rough, given he was a street urchin. But by the time he burst into the room, he ended up falling into a bow on the floor because the fealty contract forced him to show decorum. Leon was still thankful. He promised to repay Val's kindness. However, Val would tell him it wasn't his choice. He was ordered by Pride. She let up the decorum clause, so Val could express he didn't give a crap what happened to Leon. But still, the prince did not care. Val saved him. That's the only fact that mattered. He was grateful to Val, and Sefik and Kemet too. Pride would apologize for the sudden audience with Leon's father, King Gregorio. She wanted to explain the events that led up to now, but she had one request to make first. Summon Prince Erwin and Homer now. The king seemed a bit off, trying to make excuses for them. However, Pride made it clear she wasn't here as Leon's fiancé, but as a representative of the queen. She received official permission from her mother to make this visit, and asked again that he summon his other sons. The two would play a relieved coyness, smiling and expressing to Leon they were glad he was home safe. These guys. I hate people like this. Society would be better if the moment we caught someone acting this way, they were thrown in jail. The atmosphere would turn nervous with Pride coming up and thanking them for taking excellent care of her darling fiancé. She smirked at them, and they backed away. And then she gave the floor for Leon to speak. He told his father he woke up sitting at a pub in town, unable to move, and Pride saved him before anyone noticed. All this was part of a plot by Erwin and Homer to frame him. They came to his room, gave him a spiked drink, and abandoned him there. They tried to object, insisting they only shared some wine with him last night because they were sad to part ways with him. They called his accusation wild. Leon was firm though. Pride's men rescued him from the pub and determined he'd been drugged. Erwin told him that proved nothing. All rubbish cooked up by Princess Pride, and the kingdom of Frisia was trying to pull the wool over his eyes. Homer added Frisia had been buttering Leon up to give them an excuse to declare war, and the men were getting pissed. The brothers pressed on about how the knights somehow found him just in the nick of time, suggesting Frisia fabricated all this. The king slammed his fist on the table, warning the two he had already told them to clean up their act before it was too late. He bowed before Pride and apologized on their behalf. Under his authority, he stripped both Erwin and Homer of their royal titles and all rights therein. The two are restrained by the enemy royal guard, and Erwin angrily asked who besides him or Homer was fit to inherit the throne. Pride sighed, telling the king she had a premonition and knew he had something to discuss with her. Well, rather, something he wished to originally discuss with her mother. It was regarding the cancellation of the engagement between her and Leon, all to give Leon back his right to the throne. Even Leon didn't know that, but somehow, the younger brothers did. Before the king could respond, Pride requested immediate dissolution of her engagement. This was the same as the will of Frisia. Erwin began to shout that this was ridiculous. Leon was perfect. There was no reason for the engagement to end. However, Pride said the original need for their engagement no longer existed. It was first proposed to solidify the alliance between their two kingdoms and to put it on display for their neighboring countries. She declared she saw the enemy kingdom would fall to ruin once Leon left. She told him he was someone the kingdom needed, and they could be sworn allies. As long as their relationship was solid, they had no need to prove their alliance. They could just retain the equal partnership that they've had until now, a strong alliance that didn't falter in the face of a cancelled engagement. The two made a solemn vow to do it as friends. Erwin called Leon a joke and said a soulless puppy like him could never become king. Just a dumb patsy that never noticed what he and Homer were up to. He started crashing out, adding that everything would fall apart in no time. Pride silenced him with a shout. She walked up to and told Erwin straight that Leon had all the qualities needed to become a great king. He loved his people more than himself and strived to live up to their expectations. A vital asset who dedicated himself to being a worthy king. She smirked, bringing up how he said everything would fall apart with Leon in charge. Because that's exactly what happened when Erwin became king in her premonition. Under his rule, the people became so poor, they had to leave the country, and that tanked the trade market. It got so bad, people could hardly believe the enemy kingdom was ever prosperous. Worst of all, the brothers would eventually come to Frisia begging for Leon's help. That's exactly what played out in the game. Man, these princes are bottom tier trash. They even gaslit him in the game, telling Leon, "Do you not care what happens to our people?" It pissed him off so much, he sent them away. And then he broke down in Tiara's arms afterwards. The two brothers harbored a sense of inferiority towards Leon since they were young. That's why they spread rumors that forced Leon into getting engaged to Pride. Once the king learned the truth, that's when he warned them to clean up their act. But that didn't stop them from the drugging. Pride warned that if they ever posed a threat to this kingdom, or Leon again, they'd become her personal enemies, and she'd punish them with her own two hands. Leon was racked by so much grief at the start of the game, because all his citizens at the pub got sentenced to death, made even worse by the fact Pride ordered Leon to kill them himself, and it was his brothers who offered those citizens to her as criminals. Soon after Leon moved to Frisia, the king fell ill and died, causing the brothers to inherit the throne. With everything in ruin, they pressured Tiara to help them convince Leon to return, and even kidnap her to use as a hostage. Pride asked the brothers what vision they had for the kingdom after taking the throne. If the citizens weren't first, they had no right to reject Leon and his pure heart. Now that the brothers had been sent away, Leon embraced Pride. With tears in his eyes, he was so grateful. She told him his love for the country was so beautiful. Despite being tormented, he bottled all his pain inside, all while smiling and whispering loving words for her. She was glad she could give him his kingdom back. Afterwards, she introduced the king to her brother, as well as the knights that helped this operation come to success. They all shook hands, Arthur and the king's handshake being the most important. Since Arthur had the ability to heal anything, the king's sickness healed right away. Leon would give his goodbyes to them and brushed Pride's hair, telling her he'd love for her to visit any time. He'd suddenly move towards her and surprise her with a kiss on the cheek, whispering that she was his first love. She was so caught off guard, she felt back. Her face was so red inside the carriage, she couldn't believe she was his first love. That was the incredible seductiveness of the flirt archetype. Stale was freaking out because Leon just kissed her. Arthur told him to shut up and stop reminding her. No one was ready for how Pride was red in the face and about to faint. King Gregorio told his son they could have easily solved this without ending the engagement if she weren't heir to the throne. He apologized to Leon. The Crown Prince responded positively that he loved this kingdom and its people. The love he had was irreplaceable. Either way, he could see Pride anytime he wanted as allies. He felt nothing but honor for becoming allies with someone noble, virtuous, and pure. But he didn't know that a first love would make his chest feel so tight, so warm. He wondered when he actually fell in love with her. Beyond his love for his country, he found himself full of love that he needed to shower upon someone else. He wanted it to be Pride. He'd continue to love her, at least until the day came when he knew he needed to move on. Buddy, get in line. There's like 3 other guys who want her right now. Stopping on the way back, the maids continued to cool off Pride from her hot encounter. The guys couldn't believe she was still speechless. Stale was partially relieved that his elder sister's engagement was over. He was embarrassed over his callousness to this. Arthur tried to cheer him up and teased, asking what kind of guy did he want to be her next fiancé. Stale answered someone with no dark side who loved her from the bottom of their heart and had a sense of patriotism on par with Prince Leon. Someone smarter than both himself and Gilbert, and even stronger than Arthur. Arthur thought he was too demanding, but agreed. Pride finally calmed down after some tea. She thought back to Leon calling her his first love, questioning what he meant by that. She never caught any eyes in her previous life and had zero experience with romance. She still didn't understand what love was. She contemplated the possibility that Leon maybe did like Pride, but it was just never brought up in the games. Caleb believed he was reciprocating. A kiss on the cheek symbolized deep affection and goodwill. It also said a lot because he described her as his first love, rather than beloved. If he were the first prince, those words and kiss on the cheek would mean this: you gave me back my soul, my dignity, and my love. For that, you won my heart. I shall express that special love to you along with my gratitude. For just this one moment, my heart belongs entirely to you. Pride finally understood that Leon loved her, in a way that the world of the game and its details had nothing to do with. She alone made him feel that way. She was thankful Caleb helped her see it. Riding back, Val would interrupt the gang with his earthbending along the carriage. He thought they were all being annoyingly pathetic over where Pride got kissed and whether or not she fell for the fancy pants prince. They all started choking up over him calling them out. He asked Pride straight if she enjoyed it, but she swore there was nothing special going on between them, and to not read into it more than that. Val told him, see, no big deal. But Stale had to emphasize Leon was her ex. This was news to Val. He got so excited, he lifted the carriage and rushed them on the way even faster. Pride eventually filled her mother in on all the details with the established treaty to an enemy and regular visits between nations to maintain good relations. Her mother apologized over the events that transpired. She couldn't understand why things weren't going well for her daughter. She just wanted to make Pride happy and desperately wished to be a loving mother. Up until now, Pride never expected the queen to be a parental figure, despite referring to her as mother all this time. Perhaps she wanted her to do something motherly from even before she regained memories of her past life. She had only seen her mother as queen, a perfect, wonderful being with no flaws to speak of, despite the fact she was just another human. Pride approached to tell her mother she loved her and her father, that they both gave her so much happiness, and told her the moment she showed confidence in her, taught her all she needed to be queen. The queen embraced Pride, but the heartfelt moment was cut short by her revealing she had a premonition over 10 years ago. She saw Pride wielding her power to hurt the weak for fun. No one was able to stop her. It was awful. She was so afraid Pride would become a monster. That's why up until 8, she struggled to treat her daughter right. This shook Pride to her core, but she still tried to keep the heartfelt moment intact. Over tea, Stale would ask Pride about her future visions. He asked if her premonition was why she treated an enemy's second and third princess so harshly. He felt her hatred towards them was unusually strong at the time. Pride began to shake nervously, but Stale was earnest. He just wanted to understand her. Tears fell as she told him she couldn't forgive them, not just because of the future, but because of all the people at the pub that would have suffered as a consequence of their actions. She knew it hadn't happened yet, but couldn't stop herself from hating them. Stale would try to comfort her as she went on about the potential future of that kingdom's suffering. She saw herself in those wicked princes and cried even more. Stale suddenly hugged her and told her she'd never end up like those two, that she was more beautiful, noble, and compassionate than anyone. And even if the worst came to pass, they'd be there to stop her. He promised to always be by her side. His face came closer, where at the same time, she turned her head, and now they were nose to nose. He jolted from the suddenness and apologized. She didn't think much of it though. She was thankful and thought it was funny he told her the exact same thing Arthur had said to her earlier. One evening, over drinks, Alan was teasing Arthur for being Princess Pride's most trusted imperial knight. He assumed since Arthur stood guard at her door every night, it was the perfect chance to chat her up. He asked if Arthur made a pass at her in the heat of the moment, but Arthur told him he'd never do that. Alan was just messing around though. During guard duty, Arthur could tell Pride couldn't sleep. He reassured her Prince Leon was safe and he'd be fine when he woke up in the morning. He told her to be in high spirits. She had a loyal following and they were all on her side. He gave her a little heartwarming speech detailing pretty much everyone in her life who was here to help her. Then asked her to open the door a little so he could lend her his hand. He held hers for connection as he told her he'd been honing his skills with the sword this whole time to protect her, and reminded her of all she's done to help out others by offering them chances like him. That's why they were willing to follow her lead and would always be by her side. She thanked Arthur by telling him she loved him and passed out. This was too much for his heart. Caleb and Alan were so embarrassed that instead of trying to get at Pride, all he did was talk about how cool they were. The guys were caught off guard by Stale's sudden appearance. but Arthur already knew it was him, even nearly passed out on the table. He sat right next to Arthur, and just as Arthur was about to blabber about how strong and smart he was, Stale had to cover his mouth. It was too embarrassing. He threw Arthur out of the room so he could sober up a bit. Stale used this time to ask the rest of the guys what they honestly thought about Arthur. Alan said he was fun to be around, Caleb said he had a genuine talent for battle, and always puts forth his best, even outclassing other knights. He chose to remain Pride's personal guard, and as sharp as ever. Eric mentioned there were many new recruits inspired by Arthur. They all thought well of him. This brought Stale great relief. Arthur apologized. He woke up and found himself outside for some reason, and was surprised to see Stale. He sobered up real quick, and now that he was up, Stale could get to business. He came here to tell Arthur he'd be shadowing Uncle Vest starting tomorrow to see him work as seneschal firsthand. This was to prepare Stale for serving as the next regent. He wanted to be ready for whenever a new fiancé would appear for Pride. To this, Arthur headbutted him to the ground. The two started a fight over it. Stale wanted to make sure Arthur was the first one to hear about it, but Arthur told him if he wanted to vent, he should have done it sooner. By the end of it, Stale got the upper hand, tripping Arthur onto the floor. He remained serious, explaining to the rest of the guys, with him gone for the time being, he didn't want a single person he didn't trust to get near Pride. He trusted these 3 division captains, and wanted them all to become Pride's personal guard, to walk alongside Arthur as her official guardsman. It wasn't even that Stale trusted the 3 completely, but he had faith in Arthur's trust. Moving to the enemy kingdom, Prince Leon was offering food and drink to Val and the kids. Val asked why Leon had Pride exempt him from the rules of his contract. For Leon, it was simple. He wanted Val to be his friend, and thought he was a good person at heart. Even though Val thought he was crazy, Leon brought up that friendship was obtained when they could discuss romance, causing Val to choke on his drink. Val didn't want to talk about that mushy stuff. He thought that was more suited for the prince, or bratty knight who hung around his mistress. Leon was confused. He thought Val had a thing for Pride too. This only made Val more irritated. He told him she hated that stupid brat. That aside, Leon was hoping to have Val just call him by his name next time, because that's what friends did. Val told him to learn to handle as much booze as he did first before trying to get friendly with him, and Leon was more than ready, setting a lot on the table. Having imported ingredients from Leon's kingdom, Pride presented some original dishes she came up with to the knights. They enjoyed it, having no idea these were Japanese dishes she made in her past life. Last year, her cooking was terrible and burnt, but thanks to Tiara's main character cheat skills, they were able to reproduce the recipes no problem. The girls would show Arthur and Stale the melon pond, and Tiara told Pride she should feed them because she put her heart and soul into making them. Pride was shy, but took a piece of the bread to feed Arthur, and he munched on it recklessly, with his mouth ending up on her finger. He thought it was delicious though. Next was Stale, who ended up with some bread on his mouth, so Pride wiped it off. That made him really shy. She'd feed Val some onigiri next, and he munched it down. He then fed her back, and she maintained her poise throughout. Everything seemed at peace following the events after the engagement. However, Pride was still worried about the next male lead. Elsewhere, a mysterious man was relaxing until he received a message. He was annoyed because it was time to work, but saw the brighter side as well. This meant they were one step closer to Frisia becoming a product on the shelf. The very idea entertained him. Pride rushes over to Arthur this morning to confirm the good news. He's been promoted to vice captain of the 8th Squadron. The 2 princesses hug him tight to congratulate him, and it's too much for his heart. It really stayed on his mind for quite a while. He continued to think about how nice she smelled throughout the day, about how cute she was. Someone suddenly called his name, and he reacted fast, dodging an array of knives while drawing his blade. It was the 8th Division captain, Dirk Harrison, testing his readiness for combat at any time. He apparently forgot to tell Arthur he had to assume all duties of vice captain by the end of the day, and thought Arthur was too slow finishing this bout, and that he should end it faster next time. Arthur thought he was so scary. In battle, the 8th Squadron placed importance on each member's special abilities. Strength was the only thing that mattered here, and he was ready for it. While having tea with the 2 princesses, Leon mentions that the second prince of Circe's kingdom, one half of the united Hanazuo kingdom, had told him that he wanted to grow closer to Pride. Pride remembers the nation being a joint kingdom made up of the kingdom of Circe and Chinensis, 2 smaller nations with a shared border. Though their borders were closed, Frisia continued to reach out to form an alliance. Leon has also reached out requesting something to that effect, but they had heard no response. The prince would be arriving in 5 days, and he wanted to let Pride know he'd be coming here. Pride was a bit appalled that this prince decided to go through another nation's crown prince to be a messenger. This reckless action sounded just like him a year before the start of the game. Stale and Arthur thought it was strange this prince was suddenly visiting too, especially the part about the prince wanting to befriend Pride. The info Stale had on the kingdom was that they only engaged in trade with the anemone kingdom, and being rich in gold and minerals, they were thriving even before they closed the borders. Vest told Stale the firstborn prince, now King Lance, is an outstanding monarch who pays close attention to the state of the world. However, there was hardly any info on the second prince, Cedric. Stale still felt Arthur's skills weren't adequate enough to put him at ease, so he upped the seriousness of their sparring. The only thing that might make him feel confident is if Arthur rose to captain. But even then, Arthur was able to close out and win this time. Frisia welcomed the final love interest from the first installment of Our Ray of Light, another victim driven into a corner by Queen Pride, and future fiancé of Tiara, the world's protagonist. His name is Cedric Silva Lowell, and he told them he was grateful to be granted an audience with him. Pride knew there was only one reason for this, but she had to pretend she didn't know and look surprised. Cedric asked the queen to consider an alliance between their nations. This is a huge surprise and not what Pride expected at all. Post-meeting, Tiara still thought the whole thing was strange. Cedric said his brother was busy and couldn't make it, yet he asked the queen to journey back to his nation for the signing. It seemed strange he'd negotiate an alliance single-handedly, even as the king's brother. Still, he's a love interest, who, unlike Leon, who was the flirt archetype, Cedric is a narcissistic prince who believes that his beauty is transcendent with one major flaw. He knocks at the door and asks for Pride's time. He wanted to be shown around the beautiful castle by her beautiful highness, Crown Princess Pride. Tiara cut in to say she'd join them, making whatever excuse she could to not leave her older sister alone. As they walk and talk, Pride recounts Cedric's fatal flaw to be his ignorance. He has an extreme lack of knowledge in the ways of the world. She even thought it was fair to think of him as an idiot. The childish innocence he shows from time to time, along with his sweet words and assertiveness, were a big hit with players who love the arrogant type, so he was a very popular character. He suddenly lifts Pride's hair to look at it close, describing it as gorgeous, a deep crimson with a lovely smell. He kisses it, catching her off guard. His excuse? Her hair is so beautiful, he can't help himself. With him then kissing her hand, she has no idea what's happening. She remembered this CG very well. In the game, he did the same thing for Tiara, while staying at the castle after their engagement announcement. Calum and Arthur surround him. Though Cedric is a crown prince, they told him to restrain himself. He apologizes and makes the excuse Pride is too captivating. And she can see he's not sorry at all. He follows it up by saying, "Your Highness, Crown Princess Pride, I fear I've become a prisoner of your beauty." It's bad, because now she can't think straight. Knowing his backstory, she can't help but want to smack him and ask, "Don't you have bigger things to worry about?" It's clear the Cedric route was unlocked, but somehow, she's his target. He suddenly pulls in close, just like the scene in the game where he tries to kiss Tiara after gazing at her. Stale intervenes in the game, but here, Arthur does it instead. Calum remains polite, telling him he should head back to his room. Later, Stale learns what happened, and he's not too happy. He storms off to converse with Cedric himself to tell him kissing someone of royalty here, even on the back of the hand, is a serious crime punishable by death. Gilbert witnessed the whole thing and cuts in to tell Stale he was being quite rude to the foreign prince, but reaffirms what Stale said was true, and even slyly remarks that kissing the hand of royalty is discourteous. The two guys basically work together to make Cedric uncomfortable. We move to the two sisters preparing to make a dish using ingredients from Leon's kingdom. This special dish was to celebrate Arthur's promotion. Pride also wanted to bake some cookies for Stale in the shape of his face. The two worked together, and by the end of it, the dishes looked absolutely delicious, along with the cookies showing Stale with various expressions. Later, wandering the hall for preparation, they overhear one of the maids in the kitchen telling Cedric to stop. He was taste testing all the food as he apologized to Pride for touching her without thinking. As soon as he left his room to come apologize, he smelt a savory aroma in the air. He was surprised she could cook so well and just had to try it, since she did her best to prepare it all for him. But Pride's pissed. She didn't prepare it for him. Not only is he munching on the main dish, he ate all the Stale cookies. Bruh. She starts to cry, and that's when Stale enters scene. Witnessing her tell Cedric she despises him. Wow, okay, so he's really stupid. Just eats a whole thing of cookies with another man's face on it and thinks nothing of it. What do you guys think of him as the
final love interest. Subscribe for next week's part, but for now, watch this next video. It's me, ComfyTea. I'll see you all in the next one.